baby! Your baby needs to hear that!
Before I begin, I did come bearing gifts for the social justice warriors in the room. I hear you started wearing these safety pins around because you want to show your fellow college students how you're not one of these awful, terrible Trump people and that you're sensitive and that you want to signal your virtue. So I brought along these safety pins just for you. And I also brought along something for you to wear them with, this diaper.
I'm a big girl now.
Do you think that women who voted for Hillary, women who have strongly supported the feminist movement and supported the left, are feeling disenfranchised given the current climate of sexual brutality and oppression brought to light in Hollywood recently?
So I think that people have a willingness to blind themselves to facts that they don't want to see. And so what I've seen a lot is people saying, well, the problem of sexual harassment isn't unique to Hollywood and has nothing to do with our culture regarding sex, a leftist culture regarding sex. No, it has to do generally with men, right? It has to do generally with American society. It has to do generally with power relationships. It's funny how everybody is willing to generalize as soon as their ox is gored. Right? As soon as the left sees, wait, our culture, our feminist culture that we said that we were going to promulgate and was going to protect women hasn't protected women, nearly at all, then all of a sudden it turns into, well, it's not us that sin, it's men that sin. Right? And so I've been getting a lot of this online in the last couple of days. It's you men who haven't stood up. And I keep saying, like, what do you want me to do and I'll do it? Really, what do you want me to do? Like, if you show me a rapist like Harvey Weinstein allegedly is, then I will say send him to jail or castrate him, right? Like, this is not difficult. But if you just say to me, you don't acknowledge the rape culture, again, I need you to define that, and I need you to explain to me what I did. Like, really? I didn't do anything. And I think the vast majority of people in this room didn't do anything. And if they did do something, then maybe people should report it to the police, because that seems to me the best way to root out evil is to actually have law enforcement get involved. So the left is, so the question of what the left is doing about this, do they feel disenfranchised? No, I think they're just going to blame the same people they always blame because we're all in our own little bubbles. Should they feel disenfranchised? 100%. Because in a society that treats sex as transactional, in a society that basically reduces sex to any sort, just a physical transaction that is based solely on consent, it makes it very difficult to explain why it is that the casting couch in Hollywood is bad per se. Right? There's actually, like, feminist theory says that it's bad because of power imbalances, but the sort of libertarian culture of the left suggests that power imbalance doesn't have anything to do with it. If I feel like trading my body for a part in a movie, well, that's my business. And if you say differently, then you're slut-shaming me. Right? So that's, well, you can't really have it both ways. Either it's bad or it's not bad. And if we are going to fight sexual harassment and sexual assault, it seems to me that we have to do a couple of things. One, we have to reinvest sex with value beyond just a physical transaction. It's not just two people who are getting each other's rocks off. It actually means something beyond that. There's a relationship that's attached to it. And beyond that, I think that we need to re-inculcate in men themselves, not just the teach men not to rape routine. Like, again, it's such a weird concept. Like, when I was 11, my dad didn't sit me down and say, son, don't rape people. Like, if you have to teach your child that, my guess is that you got a bigger problem than that on your hands. What my dad taught me was to be a gentleman and to treat women with respect. And that has to do with being a gentleman and recognizing differences in sex roles. Because one of the things that's happened is that traditional masculinity, the idea that it is a man's job to protect women, this is one of our jobs as human beings, as men, to protect women, the feminist movement doesn't like that. Well, then you can't blame us for not protecting women if you don't want us to protect women. Like, I want to protect women. I think men should protect women. I think one of the reasons God put man on earth is to protect women. Okay, well, then it is incumbent on me to protect women. But if you're telling me that I can't even open a door for a woman because this is somehow an offense to her honor, and that if I say that it's man's job to protect women, that this is somehow reinforcing gender stereotypes, then don't come whining to me when bad stuff happens. Because the answer to bad behavior is good behavior. The answer to vice is virtue. The answer to vice isn't just yelling and hashtagging crap. Okay, guys, I'm sorry. I have to explain to you how semantics work. Like, really, I think that's important now. Okay. You're so boring. You're so boring. Okay, so let me explain to you something, okay? If you're going to pick a chant like shame, who, me? If you're going to pick a chant like shame, watch Game of Thrones first. The bad guys shout shame. You're not changing anybody's mind. All you're showing everybody is that your collective IQ, if it were channeled into electricity, might be able to toast a piece of bread lightly.
So my question was about abortion, and I just wanted to know, why exactly do you think a first trimester fetus has moral value?
Okay, so a first trimester fetus has moral value because whether you consider it a potential human life or a full-on human life, it has more value than just a cluster of cells. If left to its natural processes, it will grow into a baby. So the real question is, where do you draw the line? So you're going to draw the line at the heartbeat, because it's very hard to draw the line at the heartbeat. There are people who are adults who are alive because of a pacemaker. They need some sort of outside force generating their heartbeat. Okay, are you going to do it based on brain function? Okay, well, what about people who are in a coma? Should we just kill them? Right? The problem is, anytime you draw any line other than the inception of the child, you end up drawing a false line that can also be applied to people who are adults. So either human life has intrinsic value or it doesn't. I think we both agree that adult human life has intrinsic value. Can we start from that premise?
I believe that sentience is what gives something moral value, not necessarily being a human alone.
Okay, because, so when you're asleep, can I stab you?
I'm still considered sentient when I'm asleep.
Okay, if you are in a coma from which you may awake, can I stab you?
Well then, no. I guess not. I mean,
I'm glad you answered that, because I have no interest in actually murdering you.
But that's still potential sentience, and it's still a potential.
I agree. It is potential sentience. You know what else is potential sentience? Being a fetus. Okay, so can we talk now, or are you going to keep shouting? Like, really, now's your chance to get it out. Let's hear your feeling. Come on. Just go for it. Or it's going to be like every 30 seconds, like some annoying microwave timer. Like, you got anything more? You got anything more? Okay. Are we done? Thank you. All right. Social justice.
If I'm in a coma and I'm not like doing anything to anyone, I'm not causing any issues amongst the world, whereas an unwanted child may or may not be a burden to people.
Okay, well, there are lots of people who are unwanted, right? I mean, there are lots of people's parents who are unwanted, right? We're a bunch of college students. You know, the problem is that now you're shifting the argument, right? Before you were making the argument based on the intrinsic value of a life based on sentience, and now you're talking about the level of burden that somebody presents as a separate moral argument. Okay, I don't believe that you being a burden on somebody is justification for them killing you, as a general rule.
Fatality.
For as long as I've been alive, there's been a lot of questions about media objectivity, and I don't think that those questions are ill-founded. I think this is why, as I've been saying, it's really incumbent on the media to do as much reporting of the facts as possible and leave a lot of the hyperbole out of it. I know that's really difficult in a time when, you know, the hyperbole seems to not only get ratings but also to jog people's kind of amygdalas. But the fact is that the more the media underplays, I think the better they will do in terms of people trusting them. Because at this time, what's happening right now is everything's breaking down into tribal affinity. President Trump says fake news. A lot of his people say, okay, well, if the president says it, the media are fake on a lot of topics, or at least they are biased on a lot of topics, so why wouldn't they be biased here as well? The media sort of need to bend over backwards to prove that they aren't biased, especially in cases like the Russia investigation. I just have one question. Do you know me? Do I know you? Like, how do you know anything about me? Why am I a white supremacist? Because you guys are here shouting down people who are speaking. Really? Okay, last time. How what starts? What are you talking about? What is it? And why, if you have a question, why don't you just ask it? I'm happy to talk with you, but this is nonsensical. This doesn't help. What was that? Well, then tell your people to sit down. We're having a question-answer period. Well, then, who are they? If you want to have a conversation, let's have a conversation. But this is not productive. This is whiny nonsense.
Where do you see the most egregious media bias right now?
Well, over the last 3 weeks, obviously, the coverage of the gun debate has been absolutely egregious. I mean, I don't want to single out your network, but CNN's been pretty bad on this from a conservative perspective. The idea that when there's a mass shooting, that the media feel the necessity to put on TV not only survivors, but specific survivors, that there's a certain subset of survivors who make it on TV a lot, and there are certain other survivors who don't, and that they decide to single out certain events and not other events in order to make a particular case, or they allow certain people to go on TV and suggest that folks like Dana Lash or people at the NRA are evil, don't care, they're terrorists, and there's no pushback from the anchors. You know, this sort of thing makes a lot of people on the right feel that the media are really using this as an opportunity to push gun control rather than objectively covering, you know, the legislative efforts that are going on in Washington, D.C.
Can I help you out? Okay.
Alrighty. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. How are you doing today?
Yeah, doing okay.
A little chilly, but it's November, right?
Seems like a lot of security for no protesters.
I'm not security.
Let him speak.
Ben, you're the
How are
man.
you, sir?
Free country.
Sure.
Over here for a minute.
Oh. How are you?
I'm the head of public safety.
Nice to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you. You know that you weren't registered, whatever, for the group didn't register you for the event. They have strict things,
Welcome to
so
Soviet
you're
Union.
not allowed, into the event.
Well, I mean, YAF did inform you that I was coming as a speaker, as a person sitting in the audience, as well as a member of Christina Hoff Sommers' team. So I'm not sure whether their standards are necessary. I'm also wondering exactly why it's so necessary to keep me personally out.
We're just following protocol, sir.
Well, why is your protocol to keep me specifically out?
What country protocol? Soviet Union or United States?
You want to step over here to decide?
Well, I'm happy to do it right here if you'd like. I mean, I don't think this needs to be private.
The bottom line is it's private property, okay?
I'm
It
fully
wasn't
aware.
proper procedures weren't followed, and you're not going to be allowed.
So am I to understand that if I take 3 steps forward, you will attempt to have me arrested?
If you create a problem and you will not, leave the campus, yes.
Okay, so just to be clear, if I attempt to enter that hall right there and sit down just to listen to somebody speak, or if I attempt to ask a question or to engage in free speech, you will have me arrested.
At this point, yes, sir.
Okay. I'm glad that we've clarified that situation. I'm also glad that in a city, I mean, we clearly have great security. I'm glad in a city that has some 4,000 shootings to this date, you have 30 members of security just for a 5'9", 165 Jewish guy. I think this may be a mild allocation of resources. I think that the agenda being pushed is gun control if there, again, is no pushback on questions that would be asked to any other guest. I think that tragedy is obviously a terrible thing, but it doesn't necessarily confer expertise, and that's one of the big problems here.
You're very popular, Ben. Do you want to grab that?
Yeah, exactly. Goodness gracious.
It happens to all of us.